Hello, and I'm live. This is going to be a short stream, so I'm gonna just basically get to the point. As you can see by the title is Geography in Baseball, the Tampa Bay slash Montreal Rays. If you wonder why the title is like that, there is some news that I'm going to inform you about, and I'm going to put a link to that in the description box after this stream is done. One of the things that has happened is that the Tampa Bay Rays have been given permission by MLB, by Major League Baseball, to explore the option of splitting the season between St. Petersburg, Florida, and Montreal, Quebec, in Canada. And I'm going to explain some of the things that come with that. This has been tried before in Major League Baseball. Fittingly, or ironically, it was the former Montreal Expos that did this when they went to Puerto Rico, when they spent part of the season in Puerto Rico and San Juan. And what they did was they held games there. I remember watching some of those games on TV where they would spend part of the season in Puerto Rico and they spent part of the season in Montreal and Quebec and Le Stade Olympique, or in English, Olympic Stadium. This has been tried before. And it was tried sometime around 2003. This was 2004 was the very last season that the Montreal Expos were in Montreal, and in 2005 they became the Washington Nationals, as they are still known today. And for many new baseball fans, many do not know that the Washington Nationals used to be the Montreal Expos. And why I bring that up, it's going to tie into the subject of this video. Right now, the Tampa Bay Rays are struggling with attendance, in spite of the fact that they have shown decent levels of play within the last decade. They have gone to the World Series, they have gone to a few playoffs. They haven't won a World Series yet, but they have shown respectable play over the last decade. They've had a few bad seasons, but they've had some very good seasons. They've gone to the playoffs in 2008, which resulted in their very first World Series appearance. They went to the playoffs in 2010, 2011, and 2013. In 2018, they came up with a phenomenon known as bullpenning. Basically, they took one of the start. They took one of the relievers, a couple of whom, Sergio Romo and Ryan Stanek. What they would do with those guys is they would bring a reliever in to start off the game, and then they'd remove him after 2 or 3 innings. And one reason they did this, well, a good starting pitcher is very valuable, and a good starting pitcher can command a lot of money. When you have a low budget team like the Tampa Bay Rays, in which paying a player a salary around the $10 million mark is actually quite difficult, you're going to want to save money any way you can. And at 2018, it worked for them because they won 90 games. They won a decent amount of games, had a good record. They didn't go to the playoffs because they play in the same division, the American League East division, with Boston and New York. Oh, by the way, the Boston Red Sox are the 2018 world champions, and they had the best record in baseball last year. So what can you do? But anyway, I got to pull something up. I have a trusty atlas here, and I will be using it for a reason. One of the reasons why the Tampa Bay area is struggling with attendance with the Tampa Bay Rays, one thing to remember, they don't play in Tampa, they play in St. Petersburg. Why this is very important in terms of This is where geography comes in. I'm going to pull up a map of Florida. Well, actually, little peninsula here, that's Florida. St. Petersburg is right under my finger. As you can see right there, that's St. Petersburg, and across the Tampa Bay is the city of Tampa. I show you this because I'm going to show you an inset map. Oops, no. That is St. Petersburg. That's Tampa. And I bring this up for a very important reason. In the Tampa Bay region, that's where the Tampa Bay Rays play. This is bad. This is bad for the city of Tampa for a couple of reasons. If you've noticed, a little geography lesson here, if you notice that this little peninsula where St. Petersburg is located, you notice that it's connected. You notice that it's connected to a part of Florida that is not as well populated as where Tampa, the city of Tampa, is located. Why is this important? Well, you have to consider that most of the Tampa Bay area's population lives and points Tampa eastward. I will show you. I will show you something. That's Tampa, and you notice it's connected to the less populated part of Florida, the less populated part of the Tampa Bay St. Petersburg region. And then you notice where Tampa is located. There's more population on this side, and not only that, you've got areas like Lakeland, Winter Haven, and Orlando. You've got basically, you've got up this corridor. You go up this Highway 4, you go up the Interstate 4 corridor. You've got areas like Lakeland, you've got Winter Haven, you've got Orlando. You got areas like that. And there's a lot more potential to get fans from those areas. However, when you have, it's bad enough that the Tampa Bay Rays play in a junkie ballpark. They play at a junkie ballpark. It's not very good. It's rated as one of the worst ballparks in Major League Baseball. Geography is making things worse because when your ballpark is in a relatively remote part of your metropolitan area, oh yeah, you notice water. You notice something about the water. You have to take a bridge to get from Tampa to St. Petersburg. If you're driving from Lakeland or Winter Haven or even further, Orlando, if you're driving from that far to see a game, you do not want to you don't want to cross a bridge to get to the ballpark. If you really, really want to see the game, you'll tolerate it. But to cross a bridge to get to the ballpark, and you're crossing a bridge across a bay. This is a bay we're talking about. We're not talking about crossing the Mississippi River or crossing the Missouri River. We're not talking about that. We're talking about crossing a much larger body of water. body of water that allows for the Tampa Bay St. Petersburg region to exist in the first place. Not Tampa Bay, Tampa. The body of water that allows Tampa and St. Petersburg to exist in the first place also presents an interesting logistical situation. You got people who are not going to want to cross that bridge to get into St. Petersburg. And when the bulk of your fan base, when the bulk of your population is concentrated east of the bay and somewhat up into central Florida, you're going to want to put your ballpark there. Now, I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to want to share their stadium with the Tampa Bay Rays. I don't see that happening in the near future. But if the Tampa Bay Rays really are committed to staying in the region, a new ballpark is going to have to be built in Tampa. And there might be some problems there. But you also have to think about this. Why are the Tampa Bay Rays playing in that stadium? Well, here is a good reason why they play in that stadium. You notice the stadium has a dome? They need that for a reason. They need it for the same reason that the Miami Marlins have a retractable roof on their stadium. When you are playing in Florida during the months of June, July, and August, you are going to be prone to the rain delay. You are going to be prone to thunderstorms in the middle of the afternoon or towards late afternoon, early evening. That is what you're going to be dealing with in a subtropical / tropical climate like that of central and southern Florida. That's what you're going to be dealing with. There is a reason Tampa Bay areas there's a reason the Tampa Bay area's National Hockey League team is called the Tampa Bay Lightning. There's a reason for that. And it has everything to do with the fact that the Tampa Bay region has some of the highest amount of lightning strikes in the country. When you have a climate like that, where it's warm pretty much all year, warm and humid all year, hot and humid during the summer, you're going to get thunderstorms. Central Florida gets a lot of thunderstorms for that reason. And it lends its name to that hockey team, the Tampa Bay Lightning. All that lightning. Sunny Florida. It's kind of interesting to think. St. Petersburg, Florida, which set the record for the most days of sunshine, gets more rain than rainy Seattle. Wrap your mind around that. Oh, during the summer months, Seattle doesn't really get much rain at all. Wrap your mind, well, actually, that's easily explainable. Seattle has an oceanic, moist, mild climate. It gets rain, but the rainiest parts of the year are towards like the fall and winter and part of the spring. Towards the summer, it's less rainy. It's much drier. But I digress. We're going to talk about the Tampa Bay region. And this is what I wanted to focus on when because of the low attendance, mainly because of the geographic logistics. And there's also another thing to consider. You have many people who can't afford to go to the games. And I remember reading an article about this. I read something. There is a website I recommend checking out called This Great Game. Check it out. I'm going to type it in. I will actually put it. I will actually put a link to that website in the description box, and I will also put a link to what I'm talking about. But I read I read somewhere that you had the that the high percentage of senior citizens in the Tampa Bay region has something to do with this. Some of the things to consider, like the time of the game, and then you know, the number of people who are possibly on fixed incomes. That's something to consider. I'm not saying old people won't go to baseball games because I've seen old people go because I won't. I've seen senior citizens go to baseball games. I've been to them. I've seen people who are in their 60s and their 70s going to baseball games. So it's not like they're not going to go. What I'm saying is, what I am saying is that when you have relatively expensive, I'm saying is there are certain factors that could be looked at when you look at demography, when you look at how much a person makes, or if they're on a fixed income, or if the time of the day that game isn't really suitable for them. Just some things to factor. I'm not saying, now this is why the factor of the factor of elderly people, I look at it like this. People who are elderly, those are actually people I would expect who go to baseball games. But I think the main reason, the biggest reason for the Tampa Bay region having a problem with its baseball attendance has a lot to do with just geographic location, and then just the fact that it's a lousy stadium. You think about the big geographic factor, that's a big problem. And then what does this have to do with Montreal? Well, the city of Montreal has showed that they could support a baseball team at one time. They've done it before. Granted, they did it earlier, but one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest issues with baseball in Montreal has not really been so much can you get, like, logistics has been a factor, but in the beginning, cold weather was a factor. They played in basically a makeshift stadium for a few years before moving into Le Stade Olympique. And one of the things that comes with playing in that makeshift stadium came a lot of cold weather and some cases snow. This is primarily around April, and then you have some cold evenings in September. But one of the big problems, the Rays are having some of the same issues the Expos had. They had a lot of low attendance. At that time, they also had the factor of the 1994 strike had a big effect because the 1994 strike hurt them. They lost a lot of revenue. And then you also have to understand you're paying players in Canadian dollars, which are not the same as American dollars. So that's something that has to be looked at as well. But with Montreal, they also played in a stadium that was kind of far removed. It wasn't in the downtown area. And because they had trouble getting funding to get a stadium in downtown Montreal, you know, the gauntlet was laid down: new stadium or buy. And the decision was made. The team ended up going to Washington, D.C. But there are some geographic factors to consider. Could Montreal support a baseball team again? That will be a stream for another night. I think they can, but I'm going to save that for another night. but I am going to talk about some of the geographic factors that are affecting Tampa Bay Rays right now. You're having a team that is playing in a relatively bad stadium in a remote part of town, or really a remote part of the region. You have just the geographic factor to consider. And this should let you know how geography can play a role in things like baseball. I Nobody came into the stream. If anybody sees this on replay, and if you like this, you would comment, like, and subscribe.